The American dream is truly understanding that you have to fight against all odds. You have to start at the bottom, because if you do, there's only one way to go. You get to the top. When I was working for these people, I'm like, why do I keep outgrowing everywhere I go? And if I don't listen to that, I'm cutting myself short here. Don't believe what everyone tells you, because a lot of the time there's just a bunch of liars out there. Don't trust easily. Make people earn it. 3 words that I love to live by is adversity breeds opportunity. So every time something gets hard, it's setting you up. It's not setting you back.
Remember, adversity is your advantage.
Hey friends, cannot wait for you to check out this new episode of the CEO Show podcast. I interviewed my dear friend Snez V. Now, Snez is a former professional soccer player from Australia turned American dream story, and the episode is an absolute banger. So if you want to learn about leadership, if you want to learn about entrepreneurship, and if you want to level up your mindset, which is her expertise, highly encourage you to check out this episode.
Snez, my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm pumped to be here.
Dude, I'm so excited. Lots to cover today. And you are an American dream story coming from Australia down under, professional soccer player, now having a thriving business in the US, have overcome tons of adversity. So I guess my first question for you, what's the one lesson throughout your journeys that's helped you continue to take that leap of faith into the unknown?
Every single time I think I got knocked down, I didn't see that as a fail. I didn't see that as a setback. I saw it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to be better at the next thing. So I feel like while others maybe see any type of setback or obstacle, I see it as an opportunity. So the 3 words that I love to live by is adversity breeds opportunity. So every time something gets hard, it's setting you up. It's not setting you back.
Love this. This is why we're kindred spirits. My leadership philosophy is adversity is your advantage. You
Yes.
said it in a different way. That's why I love you so much. All right, so I want to talk about mindset. Before we do, this show is about leadership, and leadership is actually managing change. And you've gone through a lot of change in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the defining moment of why you left Australia? And if you can kind of just give us the origin story here, talking about the changes, because really the call to action for the audience is how can I take your story and apply that same framework to change, to open a business, to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, so in Australia, I was a professional athlete, and obviously I played soccer my whole life as well, but I turned pro very young. So I was only 18 when I was like, okay, I'm ready to go pro. I'm ready to kind of step into that world. And I was fortunate to play there for 7 years. You lose your identity, though, doing it. You are no longer a person. You're an athlete. You are no longer your name. You're a soccer player, right? Like that's who you are. And that's where a lot of people have to be careful, like how to not let their identity be lost. For me, I was also very fortunate for the first few years to be, quite healthy. Like I didn't have injuries. I didn't have any surgeries. I was quite good. The surgeries actually started when I was about 23. My first pretty serious injury happened, and then I tore my ACL twice. The first time I tore it, I remember I was only 24 years old, and I was like, okay, well, at this time, a lot of women were kind of looking to end their career around 25, 26 years old. Now it's a little bit later just because of obviously all of the things that we have out there to sustain people. But then we didn't have much, right? We had cold plunges. That was it. And so a lot of the time people would, look at, well, I've got to either start a family, my body's not working anymore, so I'll look at retiring. For me, I was like, I want to last as long as I can. However, when I tore my ACL the first time, I was like, I don't know if I can. Like coming back from an ACL reconstruction is really hard. It takes about 12 months at the time. Second game back, retore it.
Second game back.
Yeah, second game back.
I'm going to interject here. What's like your mental, mentally, where are you at right now? That's horrible.
When it happened the first time, it really took me by surprise. Like you don't really know what to experience, right? You hear about it, but you don't know what it sounds like. Yeah. And there's a pretty loud sound. It literally sounds like a giant elastic band snapping. That's what it sounds like. Everyone can hear it in the crowd. And so the first time I actually had like 6 different damages to my knee. So I wasn't able to walk. I wasn't able to do a lot of things. When I came back, I remember going, okay, you're a little bit more scared because you're like, what if I re-tear it? And instantly in your mind, you're like, what if I turn wrong? What if someone hits me again? And so when I was playing my first game, I built a bit of the confidence up. I was like, okay, I'm good. Second game back, 50 minutes in, and I just turned slightly wrong, and I just felt it go. So it was one of those things where at the time I was like, I think I redid it. And everyone was like, no. Like, you're just scared. You're just like, you're thinking it, overthinking it. I was like, my knee's blown up. I think I've done it. Like, I really do. And actually everyone got it wrong that I actually retore it. So I went to go see the physios. I went to go see the orthopedic surgeons and the assistants. And only the guy that actually repaired my knee, he was the only one that said, no, you've retorn it. He was just so sure. But everyone else was like, no. I think it's just like your hamstring's spasming. And so like once the second time happened, I remember my stomach dropping when he said that to me, because I'm like, this is another 12 months.
Yeah.
And at this time, you know, I was like thinking about what's the next phase of my life going to look like. And, you know, I knew that soccer wasn't going to last forever. Just like nothing really lasts forever. At some point we let go of something.
Yeah.
And you know that it's coming because the thoughts start to happen, the conversations start to happen. So for me, it was like, how long are you going to play soccer for? I'm like, I don't know, as long as I can. But at this point, it was like, well, maybe I'm only going to play soccer for another couple of years. And once the second ACL happened, I'm like, that's it. That was like my time. That was like kind of like proof that I had done everything I could. I'd played in the pro league, I'd played overseas, and I was fortunate enough that soccer did bring me over to the US. I was fortunate that it took me to other countries, and I met some really great people. And I just so happened to come over here and I, you know, started training at a gym. I met some people over here. I ended up being in a relationship, and I thought, well, maybe this is my time to go all in on my relationship, maybe try and like go into this workforce, like all in on, you know, the gym, strength and conditioning.
Here in
like,
Southern California.
Yeah. And it actually was a thought process for 3 years before I actually took the plunge. So I was thinking about it. So it really shouldn't have come as a shock because I was thinking about doing it.
Back in Australia.
Yeah. Even before I tore my ACL the first time.
This was always kind of like in a forward thought of yours.
Yeah, I was like, well, eventually something's going to have to give, right? I was doing long distance relationship. I was doing like, I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. I was working for the biggest gym back there anyway. You know, everything was kind of comfortable, and I didn't feel right feeling so comfortable. There was something off about that. And so after the second ACL, 6 months in to my recovery, I was like, I literally just said, I'm going to do it. I made that, like I hit that kind of that bottom point where I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I left, I moved over here with 2 suitcases and a bike, started working, relationship fell apart, found out a lot of harsh truths. Then my job fell apart. So then I had nothing. So it was like, I went from having everything to having nothing.
And now you're 10,000 miles or whatever it is away from home in a different country. Now, granted, you know, we speak the language, et cetera, but you're, you know, to add insult to injury, it's just a very challenging situation.
Oh my gosh. You don't realize how different countries are.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, even though, yeah, okay, we speak the same language, that's cool. But I come from a very conservative country, like very conservative. There's not really freedom of speech there. Like the fact that I say what I say today, everyone back home would hate that.
Which is wild because I talked about this show being a leadership show, but it's also to promote capitalism, defend free speech. Because to me, that is like really at the end of the day, freedom is my core value. And I look at entrepreneurship, I look at fitness, I look at self-leadership, actually, you know, serving the freedom. The ability to speak and express yourself freely is like the fundamental right to me. So it's super important, especially from a leadership and a feedback culture. But continue on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that actually inspires other people to understand that it can happen. So even like when I learn about like what you do with your leadership, but also your ability to say what you say in a manner that helps other people feel like they can do the same. And that's what, like, now I can do that. When I speak, I understand that I can speak from a place that if it's integral and it's authentic to me, then why not say it? Why not speak about it? Right? Not everyone's going to agree. We're not all here to agree with each other. We wouldn't, like, that wouldn't exist. We actually need different levels of perception and opinion so that we can really, like, you know, also correlate with each other a little bit. Now, yeah, we don't want to hate on each other, but at the same time, everyone has different values. And I think that at the end of the day, when you come from a country where you're kind of like pushed to not share, right? Just follow the crowd, do what they say, you know, follow the rules.
Which is kind of like innate in human nature, like especially in groups. And we've seen since 2020, like we follow the masses, you follow the herd. So when you go against the grain, which is the essence of leadership, that can be really challenging. How have you, Snez, been able to manage that?
Well, so I think with leadership in regards to that, when you are truly authentically you, like people can't question you because like this is who you are. If you're a leader and you're like, these are my core values, this is what I live by, this is what matters to me, these are my boundaries, these are my standards, my expectations that I hold, and I actually meet them on a daily, no one can question you. So then they're going to start to look at themselves and go, well, maybe I should have my own standards. Maybe I should have my own core values. Maybe I should be doing this too because it's clearly working for them. And so everyone needs some form of leadership out there. And like, I mean, we're probably just, I'm an example of myself, but then I'm also an example of other people before me, right? And so we're just learning off each other. So while we are the leader of our own life, we're also kind of following the path of the bigger leaders out there too. And I think if you can listen to the people who have the wisdom. Now, the wisdom doesn't come from just learning and taking knowledge or whatever. It's like looking at what has been done before you, trying it in your life, probably failing, learning, and then going, I'm a little bit wise to know that that doesn't work, and I'm wise enough to know that what does work, and then I'm going to lead the way with that. So like taking all of this information that's out there, because the information is there. Everyone in the world cannot say, well, I don't know. I've never known. Well, that's because you're not looking for it. But if you really want to know something and if you really want to apply it to your life and you want to lead your life, search for the information.
I mean, you have all the world's information in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. And even what we have today, like the fact that we have podcasts now, no one had that.
Yeah.
Like, did you have it when you were younger?
No.
Yeah, you probably just watch TV or you listen to the radio. Like, people don't understand how much the evolution is so fast right now that it's probably overwhelming for people. So how can they know where to go? How do they know how to lead their own life when they're so consumed? So they have to start to become a creator instead of a consumer.
Ooh. I want to peel that thread. Before we do, I want to look back now because I kind of interjected about your experience. You know, you're in Orange County, all this craziness had happened. You've lost your, soccer career. You've lost your relationship. You're in a distant land. What are the big learning lessons if you look back and you speak some truth into yourself? And then, of course, I want to take, the success in your gym ownership and all that.
For sure. Don't believe what everyone tells you because a lot of the time there's just a bunch of liars out there, right? Don't trust easily. Like, make people earn it. Actually make people earn it. And I think that was definitely one of the biggest lessons. I was too forgiving. I wore my heart on my sleeve, and I still kind of somewhat do, but I understand that some people are just not honest people. They just don't have it in them. Not because they're intentionally trying to be dishonest, but because they're too scared to tell the truth, or they're too scared to be the truth.
Yes.
So I don't think anyone out there is honestly malice in what they're doing. I just think that it showcases their insecurity, their lack of confidence, and their lack of authenticity. So it comes up in a lie. And so people will constantly tell you what you want to hear or show you what you want to see, but in reality, it's probably not true.
That is so true, no pun intended. People sugarcoat things because they don't want to hurt other people's feelings, this, that, and the other. But a lot of times it's just a self-reflection to your point of the insecurity. There's a famous quote, no one likes someone who tells the truth, because the truth, it can be tough, it can be raw, but that's actually where the real value lies. Let me ask you this. How do you manage that, being a world-class leader? I look up to you. It's been really, really inspiring to see your growth and the truth bombs that you share, not only online, but also, too, in terms of your team and, developing that relationship. How do you, manage being very authentic and real and truthful, but also still being able to be warm and connect and, coddle that relationship as well?
Yeah, I've been called a teddy bear with combat boots. That's what I've been called.
A teddy bear with combat boots.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think it's because I have so much compassion and kindness for people. But first you got to break through the intensity, because I will always give people the time of day. I'll give them the compassion. I'll give them the understanding and the support that they need. But I also need them to first earn it. So that's where the intensity comes from. So for me, I want someone to earn my trust, and I also want to earn theirs. Okay, so it's a fully balanced. Like, I will come to them and I will tell them and I'll set the bar and I'll set the expectation. I want them to understand that, when I'm around someone, I expect there not to be a lot of small talk. I expect the conversations to be intentional, meaningful, and I want them to go somewhere. If you want a small talk, if you want to go and do all that stuff, there's a million other people out there that you can do that with, not me. And if they are willing to come to the party on that, then I can lead them a better direction.
Was that factory that approach, Snez, from your lens, was that factory installed, or was that developed, or maybe a little bit of both?
No, that came from all of the pain that I went through. So that came from all of the people that hurt me, truly. Like, I was hurt by so many people in my life. And it was so uncomfortable and disappointing how much I gave to people and got little in return. But I was an overgiver, right? You're either a give it to me or you're let me give it to you. I was an overgiver. And I only learnt that when I went through therapy. So I went through therapy for like 18 months, and I started to understand that I really just wanted to give and give and give. However, if you do too much of that, people will take you for granted because you're conditioning people to constantly take from you. You're not actually conditioning people to just like actually appreciate what you're doing for them.
Yeah.
So now it's like, I'll still give to you, but there's going to be some conditions to it.
Totally. That's such a hard balance to go through, actually. Do you consider yourself like a naturally, because of the past, like a inherently trusting person, and then you've learned because of the pain to be able to put a little bit of a wall, but also to do that in a good fashion?
Yes, for sure. I've definitely learned how to kind of go, let me get to know someone before I just openly trust them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna always come to someone and be like, I think you have a good intention. I think you are worthwhile for my time and for me to get to know you, but you're going to get tested along the way.
Yeah.
So I like to test people. I will test people. If I say some hard-hitting truths and they get uncomfortable, what does that say about them?
Totally. How, on the flip side, have you been able to go through that experience but not be hardened? Because I've seen a lot of people, as an example, they go through really tough experiences. People, betray them, and which is unfortunately just, the symptom of being alive. That's going to happen. I like to think humans are amazing, but there's some that are not so great as the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
But then they go through these experiences and they get hard, they get callous, and then that actually creates like just a wrecking ball and a train wreck that doesn't, serve humanity, doesn't have a higher purpose. How have you been able to still take that, carry that with you in your interactions and your leadership, but still, have the end goal of positivity, of pouring into people and leading people?
Yeah. Well, I think that you're always going to come up to, I guess, some of the people that will continuously hurt you or betray you or whatever. Here's the thing. We are all just victims of victims. That's all we are.
Explain that.
Well, wherever your behavior comes from, your hurt, your pain, your suffering, whoever or whatever that came from was probably also a victim of the people before that, the places before that. That's all we are. Like my parents had a really hard time. They moved from Macedonia to Australia. They had nothing. My dad got completely betrayed by another family member. Like, all of them were victims of something as well. And then I was a victim to that. And now at any point, though, we can break the chain. So I can either continue to make the next person or the next however be a victim to me, or I can try and break the chain. If I break the chain, I'm no longer hurt by it. I'm healed. So at the end of the day, if people are continuously hurting more and the chain is continuously going, you aren't healed. Healed people will help people. Hurt people will just hurt people.
Oh. How do you have the awareness? And I'm going to just speak for myself just to validate your point. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Most of my audience knows, but for those of you who are new who don't, I stopped drinking in December of 2016. And I'm proud of that, but I also know this is one day at a time. At the end of the day, that doesn't guarantee that tomorrow I'm not going to drink, but I do know today I'm not going to drink. It was a situation or a generational curse. My father was an alcoholic, a raging alcoholic. His father was a raging alcoholic. And that alcoholism, I'm sure his father just kind of got passed down from a genetic, perspective, and that genetic curse. And I finally woke up one day in December of 2016 after a dear family member that I absolutely love and adore, realizing the same thing was happening to her, but also looking in the mirror and realizing, when is this insanity going to end? And through a long, series of, therapy and reaching out to a 12-step program really made a change in my life. I guess I didn't realize for a long period of time that I was going through that path. How did you have awareness of your kind of generational victimhood or curse in order for you to make that switch?
I think therapy helped a lot, right? Whenever we go through a process, it doesn't matter if it's therapy or a 12-step, or it doesn't matter where it is, but once you kind of, awareness breeds so much change, right? Like as soon as you are aware of what is happening, you know the next step. You know that the next step is maybe get help, maybe talk to someone, join a program, get a coach, whatever it is. You know that as soon as you can pinpoint, I need help, right? You also understand that you have a problem. And your problem, there's always a solution, because every problem has a solution, but every solution has a new problem. So now the new problem maybe for you is, well, how do I consistently do this and never go backwards? And then the problem and you might say, well, I'm just going to keep stacking my days. That's my solution. Stack the days one after the other.
It is my solution.
Yeah.
Keep busy, keep focused on the mission.
But the problem to that is then, how do I stay patient? Well, I've got to now develop a lot of patience and a lot of tolerance for that. It's one day at a time, but in every single day, there's 24 hours. I have to then wait all of those hours, right? But then you're stacking so many. So for me, it was like, I needed to just move further and further away from who I used to be. So if who I used to be was it like an angry, hurt, like person that was constantly like victimizing themselves, I just had to move more and more away from that. Every time I was triggered, I needed to stay calm. Every time I felt like I was betrayed, I needed to understand. I just needed to know, like, it's a one step at a time for anyone, right? Like, and this is the part that most people don't realize. I actually turned to alcohol at some point, and it was like a stupid thing that I did. I was like drinking and driving at the same time, because for me, I was like, what's the point? I'm not here for anything. Right? So when I turned to alcohol myself, I knew in that moment, holy shit, I'm becoming my dad. I'm becoming my dad. And I hated how he treated people when he was under the influence. So because of that, I was like, I can't become that. So I didn't, and then, you know, being an athlete, it helps, because you're like, well, you shouldn't drink because you won't be able to play well.
Yeah, you got to stay on mission.
And so, but the other athletes still drank. After the game, they still went and drank. But I just decided, and this is where it comes down to it, it's a constant series of decision making, one decision at a time, right? This is like with the famous quote, you're one decision away from a completely different life. You just make that decision every single day, and that should be part of your daily disciplines, that if you make the right decision, you'll end up on the right path. And so for me, it was like, the awareness is like, what decision am I making today? What's my choice? What's my choice? You know, back then it was, do I choose to drink? Do I not choose to drink? Do I choose to have the negative self-talk and feel like shit about myself, or not? And it's really like this or that. We complicate it sometimes.
We do.
We're like, oh no, we have a series of decisions. No, it's either you do it or you don't.
We do. I want to dive into patience, interestingly enough, Snez. For a long period of time, I'm so embarrassed at this. I always used to say, patience is for poor people. And it's just my relentlessness, my drive, my willing to take action. I think two things can be true. Now that I have some maturity on this planet, I realize that what I really meant is you need to take massive action on the front end. What I hate is people that just delay and don't take action, but big things take time. So from your perspective, what's your relationship with patience? And I ask you this because you are just a hard-charging entrepreneur. I love your mindset. I love your ability to take action. So my guess is we're cut from the same cloth in terms of like their perspective on this. I genuinely am curious on your relationship with patience.
So you know how everyone has like a life lesson? Everyone always has to have, like, and some people's life lesson might be that they have to develop patience or they have to develop discipline. You know, whatever you struggle with the most, that's typically your life lesson. Patience is my life lesson. So I've always been when's it going to happen? Why isn't it happening yet? I've always been that person. If I went and played a soccer game, I wanted the feedback after the game, as soon as we finished, so I can know what I need to do next. Because I'm just a very impatient person. And when you learn that that's my life, well, when I learned that that was my life lesson, I decided, okay, well, I need to really develop patience.
How'd you learn that?
Stillness is a huge one. Like, I'm not the kind of person that sits still, but I had to become the kind of person that sits still. And there was actually a book that was written. It was Slowing Down to the Speed of Life. Oh. And it's a really great book. That, as well as Ryan Holiday's Stillness is the Key.
That's what I thought you were going to say initially.
Yeah, there's two books, so that one and that one. And what I learned is when you slow down, you develop more patience because you develop more understanding. And so it was actually me slowing down, developing more of an understanding of what was happening and why it was happening that could then go, you know what, I have to wait. And it's okay to wait. And it's, like the whole planting a seed, right? Like as soon as you plant a seed, do you just wait or do you just like kind of like give up on it because it hasn't grown yet? You have to develop it, and I think for most people, it's really, really hard because they just want the result.
Yep.
We all want the result.
Yep.
But here's the thing, like I've been in the fitness industry for 20 years. I've got 2 businesses now. If you had asked me 20 years ago, will you have 2 businesses in 20 years? Do you mind waiting 20 years? I would have said no.
Yeah, of course.
I would have said, I don't even think I'm going to own a business because I want this and this and this first. But I think that's really where, when I started to really develop just the understanding that there is a step-by-step process that needs to happen. And, the whole trust the process. Mm-hmm. I started to stop caring about the result. When I stopped caring about where I'm headed or what the outcome's going to be, and I started caring more about what am I doing today, and then what am I going to do tomorrow, and then the day after that, that's where I was like, well, I can only be here today in this moment and being present.
How do you do that? And I love this conversation because we're cut from the same cloth, very desired outcome, really goal-oriented, focused. The way we live our lives is about results, et cetera. But you are absolutely right. Nick Saban, the undisputed college football coach of all time, talks about focusing on the process. If you focus on the process, the result will take care of itself. It's a very, very hard thing to do. How do you do it?
So setting daily tasks, right? Like if you are working on your business, mm-hmm. you have to have set tasks that you're working on that day. Don't try and like spread yourself thin. Because if you're trying to work on everything to try and get the outcome, because you're like, I just need to get to the outcome. So this has to happen, this has to happen. You're spreading yourself too thin. You're making too much happen all at once. Mm-hmm. You can't develop patience if you're trying to do too many things. And your attention cannot go to too many things. There is no such thing as multitasking. It's not actually a thing.
It's multi-fail.
Yes, there you go. So every day I think I set forward an intention. What do I want to achieve? If it's in my business, if it's in my personal life, what's something that I want to move the needle on? Right? We can have like a multitude of needles that we want to move, whether it's a personal needle, like a physical goal that you're looking towards. You want to get a little stronger. You want to get a little faster. You want to make a little bit more money today. Do that. Don't try to do everything all at once. And I think that how you can do that is setting like specifics by understanding what is today going to be. Like there's intentions. Mm-hmm. Everything that we want lies in intentions. If you wake up and you go, I want to make a money move today. Make that money move. Don't do anything else. If you want to just make a physical goal, like where you go and do something for yourself, like your personal development, just do that day. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you have to put your money move on hold? Yeah, you do. It's okay. It can come tomorrow. So that's where being present is going to give you probably more progress than you trying to speed up the outcome.
Oh, love that. So gold. I hope you're taking notes, my friends. This is awesome. Snez, you talked about the 2 businesses that you have. I want to kind of transition there. So the last point before we interjected, you were in California. Ultimately, everything was burning. Things weren't looking the up and up. What did the transition look like? And I just want to kind of talk about that, your success. And then also, too, one of the things I absolutely admire about you is your mindset. I mean, we talked off camera, delivering tough truths. So like in the story of you, being able to launch your businesses, becoming very successful, which are the learning lessons built in. But I also want to talk about like your mindset, the growth that happened. So that way I know there's a huge amount of takeaways for our audience.
Yeah, for sure. So when I lost everything, I obviously had to make money. I had to figure out a way to live. Mm-hmm. So I just worked everywhere. I had 4 jobs. And for those of you that know California, driving to different cities takes a really long time. Oh, yeah. So I was in the car for like 4 hours a day. I was working multiple hours at each place. I remember driving from like Fullerton out to Huntington Beach, from Huntington Beach to Long Beach, from Long Beach back to Brea, and I would just do that every day.
And if you're listening or watching this, the geography, it's not that long in distance, but in terms of traffic and commute, that's an absolute nightmare. Just to hear that, just to put that in perspective. So continue on.
It could take like an hour and a half to drive like 20 miles?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I would do that, and then in the midst of all that, things started to shift for me, right? Because I was like, people were getting to know me. I was in different places. I was putting myself in places that wasn't very comfortable. I was willing to work for a minimum wage. At the time was $10, right? Like I was probably getting underpaid, I'm sure. But whatever, like I was just like willing to do it because I needed to make money.
Yeah.
And I remember...
In the fitness space?
Yeah, I was working for a yoga studio at the time. Okay. They were paying me $10. And I went from like a $90,000 a year job in Australia to $10 an hour.
Oh, wow.
Like that's a pretty big cut, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I guess like when you're desperate, you don't care about that. You're not even thinking about the difference. You're just thinking, how do I survive here? So I went into survival mode. And so, but eventually that survival mode kind of starts to turn into thrival mode, right? If you do it long enough and if you're patient enough. So eventually I started making like a good amount of money, and I was like, I don't need that job anymore. So I cut one. I don't need the next job. So I cut that one. So I, had 2 jobs at the time, and then I was like, well, now I only need 1 job because I'm doing pretty well at this other one. So I cut that one. And then I kept on outgrowing my bosses, and I call them bosses because they weren't leaders.
How would you, actually, I'm going to interject. How would you describe the difference of the two?
Well, when they're coming to you for advice all the time, and they're coming to you for how-tos and what to do next, they don't know what they're doing, for starters. And also, if the clients are coming to me, why are they coming to me? Well, they don't trust the leader, or who should be the leader. So, and they would tell me what to do after asking me what to do. So they'd ask me what to do, and then they would tell me what to do after that. I was just like, that doesn't make sense. So I think for me, it was like they weren't walking their talk. Ultimately, that's probably one of the biggest things that I hope your audience can take away from this. There are a lot of people that wake up early at 5 a.m. that are losers. There are people that work out 6 days a week, and they're still losers. Because the biggest challenge that we face is that people do not follow through on what they say. It's not that they don't have discipline. It's that they say something, but they do something else. And that is where the disconnect happens between trusting someone and not. Because don't you trust a person that does what they say they're going to do?
Of course.
That's it.
That's the definition I learned from John Maxwell called moral authority. When you walk your own talk, and that's the ultimate level of leadership. And from my perspective, Snez, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. In the words of John Maxwell, if you can influence yourself, first and foremost, you can influence other.
Yeah.
That's why my leadership framework is lead yourself, then you can lead your family and lead your empire, but it starts with leading you first. And it starts by doing exactly what you say you're going to do. So I just want to validate that point.
Is that the book Influence?
It is.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've read that this year.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you said that. It's crazy though, because I think that that's where, when I was working for these people, I'm like, why do I keep outgrowing everywhere I go? And if I don't listen to that, then I'm kind of like, I'm cutting myself short here. And then a client goes, have you ever thought about maybe owning your own business? And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. I know how to run everyone else's though.
That wasn't your intention to start.
No. And then I was like, well, I would love to do that. I don't know how to do that, nor do I have the money to do that. And she's like, well, I do. Why don't you do it? And I was like, what does that mean? Would you be my investor? And she's like, yep. So she did. She trusted me. I had shown up for her day after day, week after week, year after year.
I was going to say, for how long did you earn that relationship and that trust?
About 5 years.
Oh, look at that.
5 years.
So going back to the patience aspect, like having a vision, taking daily actions, but knowing that investor didn't come to you like day one. It took you 5 years of earning trust and, leading through moral authority.
And what was huge is that I built such a strong relationship. She's like, you are undeniably the most reliable person I could ever think about.
Snez, I love this. My coaching is, if you want to be the best version of you, if you want more opportunities to come, the one thing you need to do is be the most reliable, the most dependable person in the room. When you do that consistently, the world is yours.
Yeah, yeah. And reliability is just like showing up. Just showing up. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. Don't say it otherwise. Just don't even bring it up, and show up also sometimes and surprise people. Like, whoa, you're here. Like, I show up every day on my social media. I show up every day. If I say that I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be somewhere, right? I do not break because I don't want to break character. For me, it's very, very important in my character to do that. So because I'd done that for her, she's not the first person to say that I'm dependable. And I love that. I love that I've actually left that mark on people.
Yeah.
Because then look what happened, right? She gave me the funds. I think within about 12 months, I went back home. I applied for an entrepreneurial visa, which had just come out when I applied for it. Like, ironically, about 2 months prior.
What year is this roughly?
This was 2016.
Okay.
2018. 2018. I'd already been here for 2 years. So I had done my healing. I'd done my personal development to the level that I could. Right. So I'd already like broken myself down. I'd built myself back up. I'd worked on myself for 2 years. And then I remember, this is crazy, that she's from Australia and she came to visit me, and she's seeing me in these other gyms that I was working at. She's like, "You're crushing it here. Like, you really need to do more." I was like, she goes, "All these members, they come to you. They don't go to him. They come to you." And I said, "I love them. Like, I don't know why they would go to him. I love them. Like, they're mine." And that's how I see it. I treat them extremely well. I had this one rule. I'm going to off track for a second. I had this one rule that if you show up late, and I showed up late today, and I really apologize for that, and I want to take ownership of that. But I always take ownership, because when I show up late, I don't feel good about it. So I had a rule that if you show up late, you're doing 5 burpees for every minute you're late. That was my rule as a coach. So at 5 a.m., I was coaching the classes. And if someone showed up late, I'm like, "Don't even bother coming into this class. Like, I need you to go in that corner over there like a little kid, and I need you to go do your burpees." And one day I actually had like an issue with my teeth, and I took like something like a painkiller, and I'd slept in. And so I came 30 minutes late. And I said, "Here's the thing. I have to live by my rules, right? But I have to double it." So I had to do 300 burpees, right? So 30 minutes late, I went to the dentist, sat in the dentist chair for like 4 hours or 5 hours, getting a root canal, because it's like, that's a whole different topic.
Good times.
Whole different topic about the American food industry versus Australian food industry. You can put 2 and 2 together.
Ooh, we can talk about that, but continue on.
And so I went to the gym afterwards, because I was just like beat. And I felt so bad. And so I remember going over to my boss, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to apologize again." I still showed up, but I showed up 30 minutes late. And I go, I didn't even have shoes on. I went over into the corner, I rolled out a mat, and for 30 minutes, I did 10 burpees every minute on the minute for 30 minutes until I reached 300.
Savage.
And I was like, I have to do that. So for me, it's just really, really important that I would still show up. And if I don't show up for whatever reason, there is no excuse to me not making it right.
And I'm going to interject here, and this outside eyes, this is why you're confident. There's a lot of reasons, but when you keep the promises to yourself, not to anyone else, to yourself, that's really the essence of self-trust. And really what confidence is do you trust yourself? So in that really shitty situation, a good on you for owning it then and now. But when you keep that promise, and when you do that crazy amount of 30-minute burpee cycle, you come out the winner.
Yeah. And the great part is that I ended up meeting new members that came in that are still with me today, that followed afterwards. Like, I met like some incredible people that are still with me today, who followed me after, because they were like, they were trialing the gym. Yeah. And I went over to them, I introduced myself. And when you show up in front of someone, you show that you care, then they're like, "Whoa, like, you were just over there doing something weird, but now you're over here talking to us and you're showing that you care about us. We're going to follow you wherever you go." And that's how I build relationships with people. So I ended up getting my entrepreneur visa, and then I came over here and I opened a gym, and it was an absolute like hell of a time. Like, your first business is so hard. It's so damn hard. You want to quit like every day, because people are not doing what they're meant to do. You're trying, it's your baby, right? Like, it's everything to you, means everything to you, but it doesn't mean as much to anyone else. Oh yeah. And so for me, it was like, man, like, I wanted to quit multiple times. But you know what? In October 2008, I ended up opening the doors to my gym.
Your current gym?
My current gym.
Athletics.
Yep, Athletics, which is Australia and Athletics put together.
CrossFit gym.
Well, it was a CrossFit gym. Now we're a strength and conditioning functional training kind of studio now. Oh, cool. And so we veered away from the CrossFit model a little bit, and we wanted to focus on youth and adult performance. So I opened that one, and I've built it since then. Since 2018. Yep. Yeah. And I love it. Obviously, I love the community aspect. I love the youth aspect. I love everything that it stands for. And naturally, it led me online. And then I built my online presence. And it was great, because then I got bigger and bigger, first through Ausletics, actually. So I was on the Ausletics platform. I was posting a lot of helpful content to help people how to do technique better. And then I went viral. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This has got a lot of views. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. All I knew was 13,000 at the time. Views was going viral. Yeah. Then it went to 300,000. And then it went from there. But you don't realize how many people you can help, even if you're in your little studio. I was just coaching my class on how to do something. I just so happened to record it. I just so happened to post it. And people just went crazy about it. And that's actually how I started to get online presence, posted more, understood that people want to see me even if they're not in the same place as me. And that actually drew more people in. And then I obviously ended up creating a second business, which was now my online business, which is Snez V.
Love this. Let's break that down. Now that you have two businesses, that's challenging, right? In many contexts, is how do you stay focused to make sure the main thing's the main thing and your business are growing now that you have a couple of split focuses?
Oh, you would appreciate this. I struggled with delegation for a long time. And I'm sure every business owner does.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because we just don't know if anyone will ever do it as good as us. Mm-hmm. But that is our ego. That is not anything else. So
true.
I started to kind of pour into my team more. I wanted to mold and build the coaches that I had. So I started pouring into them.
In what way? What does that look like?
Helping them to become a leader themselves, helping them to take responsibility, to look at what they're really good at, and bring that into the business, bring that into the model that we have. One of my coaches is phenomenal with kids, so damn good. And we didn't have a kids program. She's like, I'd really like to have a kids program. I'm like, okay, well, let's create one. And I let her lead the way on it because she was so damn good at it. Now we have almost 50 kids in our gym who are between the ages of 7 and 14, mm-hmm. who struggle with confidence, who struggle with agility, who struggle with body awareness, let alone anything else, and they're getting strong, right? Because that's the best thing that we could do is help the next generation.
Because you had vision and you also trusted in a leader and also you were able to delegate. So let's walk that through. Why is it so hard to delegate? And in my experience, most times business owners, they don't delegate enough because it's their baby and, to your point, ego. On the other side, you do have that rare example where then people over delegate as well. I think there's a happy medium, especially as a trust building exercise. Yeah. But I really want to get, your insights and learning lessons to the audience. How did you do it and how have you evolved as a stronger delegator?
For sure. So what I first did is I set up mentoring. I just literally did weekly mentoring sessions with my coaches. And individually.
One-on-one, 30-minute session, whatever it is.
Yep, one-on-one, and I would bring something to the session and be like, okay, this is what we're working on. And I like to look at things in 6 different elements of coaching. So there's seeing, correcting, teaching, presence and attitude, demonstration, and I forgot what the last one is. And so I wanted to kind of piece those all differently. So at first I would be like, okay, today we're just going to look at what do you see when you're coaching someone? What do you see? What are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And they would be like, well, I'm just looking at their movement, their technique. I'm like, yeah, but are you ever looking them in the eyes and seeing if they actually understand what you're saying? Do you ever do you see anything beyond that? Do they make any expressions that make you maybe see that they're really uncomfortable? So we break those down into each element of coaching. And then I can go, okay, so now we can maybe work on just one mentoring session might be coaching cues.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's filled with coaching cues. Mm-hmm. Are you watching the game film of them coaching their clients?
So usually I used to sit in on one session that they would be coaching. I would just sit in the corner.
Yep.
I would not say anything during the entire session, and then I would have a 15-minute debrief.
So you're observing,
yeah,
and then you can provide them feedback.
Yep. I'd give them a debrief, and then I would give them something to work on. Here's your action tasks. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the thing that people don't want to do though, because it takes up a lot of your time.
It does.
But eventually, you don't do it. Eventually, they're so damn good that they're doing it to the next coach.
That's it.
Right? So and I think that's what we forget.
Well, and I interject here, that's the learning lesson of leadership. You have to develop, pour in your people, and there should be a return on investment because, at least to start, because they should be able to take the coaching cue and apply it if you're a good, coach and leader. Mm-hmm. But that does take time at the end of the day, and it's not like a flip of the switch where all of a sudden they're a bad coach and then you spent one session with them, they're a great coach. It takes a little bit of time, but then to your point, once you invest that time, you pour into them, then they're able to do that, and then it frees you up, which actually does benefit you, the organization, and your time long term. But it's a long term play, not a short term.
And you have to look at it like that. So I used to do one-on-one and group as well. So I would get with my whole team and be like, okay, guys, what do you want to work on? What does everyone feel like is a struggle for them? What do we need to do differently? And then that's more of kind of more of a bird's eye view mm-hmm. on not just their coaching, but how we're all coaching as a team. So that was the next step as well. So I had individual, I would do the observation and I would do the group as well. And then sometimes I had to co-coach. So that means I had to go and coach with them. And as we're both co-coaching, I would be like in the middle of it. I might say to them, "Hey, I want you to see how I coach this person right now. Can you just watch me?" And then they would see what I'm doing. I'm like, "Great, now I need you to go and do that." So then it was like this, almost like this teamwork where it was like constant, like learning, trying. But I was also there to ensure that it went well. And I think that the hardest thing to do for people is honestly provide feedback that might hurt their feelings.
It is hard. How do you do that?
Well, first I would say this to them, right? And I always do like the positive, negative, positive sandwich.
Yep.
You give them something positive. You did this great. This is where you need to improve X, Y, Z. And then this is another positive. Then you say to them, so like, are you understanding what I'm saying here? Like you need them to then tell you back what you said to them. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of it is in communication.
Yeah.
If someone gets butthurt about it, there's only so far you can go with it. You know, if they're going to get offended by it, then, you know, yes, there's probably truth in it, but also it showcases their character.
Totally.
So you got to just listen to their response.
And I think from my perspective, it's just a learnable skill. And, you know, I lead a really large organization. I have to give feedback all the time. I still don't like giving constructive feedback. That's the truth. Maybe you like it more than I do. But ultimately, from my lens, it's just a necessary evil of the business. But what happens is when you, just like a muscle with time, you get better at it. And then eventually what happens is your people get good and then they become very grateful. So initially they're butthurt at first, but then time under tension, more reps and sets, they get good, they become super grateful for you, and you know the engine continues.
One thing that I did recently, actually, because some of my coaches came back to me who are mentoring our next coaches coming up, and they said they're having a hard time applying what I'm telling them to do. So I said, okay, cool, throw them in the deep end and let them sink then. And I literally said that to them. Like, what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, yes, you are. You're going to throw them in the deep end. If you don't, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do it myself. And they didn't want to do that. So I went in and I said, hey, I need you to go and like take the leadership in this class. And I remember the guy go, are you serious? And I'm like, yep. And I go, do you know what you're doing? And he goes, kinda. I said, great. Go with confidence in your kinda. Go with confidence. If you mess it up, I need you to confidently mess it up. All right? Like just be so confident that it's wrong that it comes across like it's right. And he did.
I want you to be confident in your kinda. I love that. I'm taking it. That's an incredible mic drop from Snez. Look at that.
It's so true though, because sometimes when we are like thrown in the deep end, right, it's sink or swim.
Yep.
Most of the time, no one wants to sink. So they'll do whatever it takes to swim. Even if it means that what they're delivering is completely inaccurate, they'll at least try their best.
I love this about human nature, actually, because when we're put in a situation where we sink or swim, we don't sink, we swim. Mm-hmm. It's when we're in a situation, actually, you talked about this earlier in Australia, when you were in a comfortable situation. When you're comfortable, when you're not put in that pressure, driven situation, then human nature takes the path of least resistance. So I think there's a big learning lesson in that as well.
Yeah, and I bet a lot of your audience, they probably have some organization, and they probably don't want to let people do that. Because I think as business owners, we automatically have a little bit of that controlling problem.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We just want to control everyone.
Yep.
The problem is that like the more that you micromanage, the more you're going to get, staff that hate you.
Backfires,
Yeah, backfires hard. Sometimes you're just going to sit back and just observe it, because it can get fun. It can actually you have to make it a game. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh, what game are we playing today? We're going to let this person completely screw it up because guess what we're good at? Fixing the problem.
Yeah, solving it.
So at least you know that where you have to like redirect your level of control is back at yourself, that if something goes wrong, you're at least there to fix it.
But that also comes down to having self-trust and self-confidence, knowing that, everything can go wrong, but you'll be able to figure that out. And it's about doing the work. You talked about doing the therapy, and it's leadership and success is an inside game. And that's just very, very prevalent in today's conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, last big area of conversation I want to kind of talk about is just your tenacity to continue to move forward and win and be successful and inspire others. Where does that come from, and how do you continue to pour in yourself as you pour in other people?
So I can probably thank my dad. I watched him work extremely hard. Like he did not quit. Like it didn't matter all the shots he took, it didn't matter how hard life got. He continued to pour into what he was doing. He never quit. And that is one thing that he definitely taught me. He taught me like hard work, true hard work. And then I watched my brother do the same thing. I watched my mom do it. And I figured, well, you know what? If hard work leads to good places, we should probably do more of it. Right? Like it does lead to pretty cool places.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started to attract all of these hardworking people around me. I started to really love this idea of hard work. I'm not talking about hard work that makes you grind yourself to nothing. I'm talking about hard work when, and the whole work harder, work smarter, not work harder. I truly think that when you do work, just work hard at what you're doing. And I started to see that more in others. I was looking for it. So whenever I wanted to hire someone, I was like, are you a hard worker? And they might say they are, but they're not, right? Like a lot of people will say that there's something they're not. So I think for me, it was like I wanted that to be part of my character. So when someone says, who is Snez V? I want them to say, well, she's very straightforward. She's very authentic. She has integrity and she's a hard worker. And I want people to say that about me. So if I want people to say that about me and I want to leave that legacy, then I know that every single day I'm going to have to do that, regardless of if I want to or not. Regardless of how easy or hard it feels that day, I have to just get up and I have to just do everything I can to leave everything I can on the table.
How do you do that? How do you hold yourself accountable? Where's that fire come from? Because again, we have great days, right? But we have bad days. And sometimes, especially being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, and especially at the first, you have more bad days than good. How do you stay committed to that?
I think it's a lot of self-reflection. Like at the start and at the end of the day. At the start of the day, I'm like, what is it that I can do today? Like, let's not set like tasks that are like not even reachable. Let's not set standards that I'm never going to meet. But let's try to set something where I can shoot, right? I can shoot pretty damn hard at it. So every day I do have a specific like what I want to happen that day. What do I want to achieve? How do I want to show up? Right? How do I feel? Right? Like just checking in with myself. So always having a self-reflection in the morning. Knowing like, okay, how tired am I? Am I tired? Where is my level of effort today? What have I got planned for the day in terms of like what's on my calendar and what do I need to save my energy for or anything like that? So I have to check in with myself at the start of the day. At the end of the day, when I put my head down, I have to go, I did everything I can. I did everything I can and I showed up how I need to show up. And if I didn't, for whatever reason, what do I need to do tomorrow to make sure that that doesn't happen again? So it's a self-reflection at the beginning. It's a self-reflection at the end. People do not reflect enough. They do not look at they need to look at themselves in the mirror, truly, and go, did I do everything I could today to be a good person, to be a good leader, to be a good whatever they are? That's all that people could do. If you sat with yourself for just a few minutes a day, you would probably find out more about you than what anyone else could ever tell you about you.
Amen. And one of my leadership philosophies, Snez, is like developing a strong feedback culture. And feedback starts with you. It starts looking at the mirror moment and then having that reflection, seeing the feedback against yourself, taking action before you can actually create a strong feedback culture in an organization. So it starts with you.
Yeah. And one of the other things is like having a trusted critic. Like have people in your life, in your circle who are trusted critics. That means that you trust what they say and they're going to criticize you. And what they have to say, they might actually say, hey, you're not doing good enough.
Yep.
Like, I know your standard and it's not enough.
How do you find that person? What filter do you look? Because, you can get a lot of feedback, but some is actually not good or warranted because that person is not where you want to be. So what's that filter to be able to, I guess, attract a trusted critic in your life?
I think you should put people in your life that you truly respect. And typically they are ahead of you. Like most of the people in my life are older than me. They make more money than me. They have a better life than me. They're all better than me, right? And when I say better, I mean like they're kind of where I want to be.
Yeah.
So I like to put people in my life that are where I want to be and not just in one area. Like I might have someone that has just such a great character and I just admire their character, but maybe they don't make as much income. And they're a trusted critic.
Yeah.
I might have someone that makes a ton of income and you know what? Like they obviously do well in business. Their character's okay, but you know what? They know what they're doing professionally. They're a trusted critic. So you go to different people for different things.
Yeah.
There's not one person for everything. You should have a magnitude of people. Like I have some people that I like love where they're at just spiritually. So I'll check in with be like, hey, like, tell me what I could be doing better spiritually.
Yeah.
to understand, like, higher power, universal consciousness, whatever it is, like, help me understand that. And they will literally tell me what I'm doing that's not aligning with that. Has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with leadership, has everything to do with me.
I love that. I look at the framework of like hiring a guide going to a different country as an example. Like, you don't speak fluent Mandarin Chinese, do you?
No.
Right, neither do I. So, but if we were going there, it's probably not a good idea, Snez, that you take guidance from me, because I don't know China. I don't speak Mandarin Chinese, but there's a lot of other people that do that you want to hire as a guide. But in certain other areas, as an example, if we were in Brazil, you'd probably want to hire me as a guide because I've lived there. I speak Brazilian Portuguese. So my framework on that is like, hire the guide that you want to accomplish that specific tool or skill set for, and then execute that. And then for all the other guides, look for someone else, which is, I guess, the philosophy that you just laid down.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in trusted critics. I just think that your circle will tell you everything about your future.
Yeah. Amen. On the subject of inspiration, you inspire me so much, and for a lot of different ways, but one of them is you are the American dream story. And I think, one, maybe because of my lineage, my great-grandparents escaped communist Poland, coming through Ellis Island and all that, having that immigrant edge mentality. I've been an immigrant as well, living in Brazil. You've certainly done that, which is just incredibly inspiring, because whenever you migrate to a different country, different culture, yeah, you might be able to speak the same language, but there's different rules. I mean, literally, there are so many differences. You're at a disadvantage, first and foremost. So the amount of obstacles that you've had to overcome is absolutely incredible. And there's something romantic about that story for me, like the hard work, the vision, the determination. So from your perspective, like, I guess, what does the American dream story mean to you? And can you also give a little bit of differences? Because I feel like, there's a lot of beautiful places in the world, Australia being one of them. I feel very grateful to be in the States from a business climate perspective. I think a lot of Americans lose perspective on that. So I would love to just get a little bit of your perspective, since you have a big perspective.
The American dream is all a struggle. That's what the American dream is. There is nothing easy about it. It is one of the hardest things to do, and that's why very few people do it. It requires so much grit and determination, and it requires a lot of falling down. Getting rolled is what I like to call. You'll get rolled by so many people, places, and experiences that will happen that you will either come out better on the other side, or you will struggle and you'll just go back home. I was at that point several times of wanting to go back home because I was just so defeated. Clearly I didn't, because I just did that extra day. I did that extra hour. I did that extra task. The American dream is truly understanding that you have to fight against all odds. And that's what I did. I fought against all odds, right? Not having money, not having friendships, not having a job. Like, I actually worked illegally for a little while, because I was like, I just need work. And if it means that I have to do a shitty job, I'll go and do a shitty job. Yeah. I will. And I think that's the American dream. Go from the bottom if you want to, you have to start at the bottom. Because if you do, there's only one way to go. You get to the top.
And very symbolic to be able to cue our audience in for BK Live, which we both presented in September. Mm-hmm. And BK Live is a production put on my business partner, friend and coaching client of us both, or I guess we are coaching clients, if you will. But it was really inspiring to see you speak at the event in Scottsdale this year. And you intentionally, with RC, walked from the very back as you were called up to the stage. And at first I thought it was interesting. I thought it was unique and a little strange. But then one of the first things that you said was, symbolically, I walked from the back because a couple of years ago I was actually in the back, and you wanted to kind of show like a little bit of your backstory, but also inspire others. Yes, and I did. I sat at the very, very, very far back, right up against the wall. 2 years later, I was on the stage. And I told him that, and I said, the goal is for everyone to understand that can be them too. Yeah. If they put in the work, they put in the time, they put in the belief, right? Like, we have to believe that it's possible. Mm-hmm. We hear stories like mine, like yours, and people understand that, okay, maybe it's possible for me too. Like addiction, right? Like, anyone believes that they can actually get away from the addiction once they hear that someone else has. Yeah. And anyone can live the American dream once they understand that someone else has. And so, yes, while I was fortunate enough to have the grit to kind of continue going, I started to find myself around the right people. Because once you develop a lot more of like your personality, you create this different personal reality, which is people in your life that can help you. And I started to somehow I started to get all these people that were like, we want to help you.
You've helped us. Let us help you now. And I did. I created friendships. I created relationships with people that genuinely just wanted to see me win. And that when you have those types of people in your life, you hold on to them, you take care of them forever because they genuinely just want you to win. And however they can add to that path, I think that is what adds to the American dream. Because there are a lot of Americans here this is part of it. What I love about America is the amount of people here that kind of want each other to win. There are a lot of people here that are like, let's work together to make the economy better. Let's work together to make this better. It doesn't matter what it is, but I find that Americans actually collaborate really damn well with each other. Now, does the food industry here suck? Yes.
Yes, it does.
100%. That's like it doesn't matter how many people want to argue, it just sucks.
I'm so happy, grateful, excited for JFK, RFK taking over, I guess, some of this to make America healthy again, because it's a hot mess, for sure.
Yeah, it truly is. And that's kind of one of the biggest changes that I actually faced. And I actually had a hard time going from Australia, where the food laws are very strict. You can't just put whatever you want in the animals. You can't just do whatever you want with the products. Like, they have to go through this very specific process. The food laws are very strict. If you do anything wrong, they'll shut you down. That's it. Over here, you could just hire a little side edge person, and you could just do all this other stuff on the side, and you could call it organic because it went through one day of being organic,
right,
and that's it. It's not like that in other countries, especially not in Australia.
Most countries.
Yeah. So I think that with, that kind of side of things versus Australia, like, that's what I did love about Australia. So anyone that goes to Australia, they're always like, the food here is incredible. Oh my gosh, you can't believe it. And the coffee is outstanding. Like, it's like legit outstanding. Totally. And then I remember coming over here being like, what is this liquid dark stuff? Like, this is terrible. And I remember going to Starbucks going, oh my gosh, people have this every day. And I like saying this, that if your coffee is like 200 calories, you're no longer drinking coffee, you're drinking a milkshake.
Totally.
And so and then I didn't understand that, because in Australia, we didn't really have a lot of Starbucks. Here it's on every corner. Over there, like, we have actually like mum and pop shops. Like, they make their own, they've got, everybody just opens a different cafe on the corners. That's what people do over there.
I was talking to B yesterday, when he was talking about the trip with you, and he said some Aussie referred to Starbucks as a candy shop, and he stopped for a second. He's like, candy shop? He's like, that's true. He's like, it's just, chocolate flavored candies, like sugar all over the place.
Yeah. There's not even a Starbucks in my hometown.
Wild.
It, like, people would be like, why would you go to Starbucks?
Yeah.
Like, there's someone that's making like genuine, like, their beans are right there.
Yeah.
So, it's very different, right? We don't have, I believe it's changed now, but Australia actually used to be the fattest country per capita.
Oh, I thought that was the States, but holy smokes.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's changed now. I need to get an updated. I'm sure someone will update me on that. But it used to be. It's because they're lazy, they drink too much beer, and they like to eat. Yeah. They still like to eat. Even though it's good food, they still like to eat too much of it.
Yeah, well, that sounds like Americans as well.
Exactly. So, but, there's a lot less people over there, and even though we actually have the same size land.
Crazy, but like 10% of the people.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So there's a lot of differences over there. And each state is very different to each other as well. But where I'm from, it's very political. It's
Canberra, which is like the DC of Australia.
Yeah, it's like nation's capital. Everyone knows that it's that. And so you either work in construction or you work for the government. You're doing one or the other, but your day is the same. It is very redundant. If you've ever watched Groundhog Day, it's that.
That's that.
That's it. You wake up, you go to work, you go home, watch TV, rinse and repeat. There's very, very little past that, where I'm from specifically. So it's called the golden pillow. People call it golden pillow because you are also tied to the golden handcuffs. You have good money, you have a good job, you have all the benefits. It's easy to get around. It's easy to get food. Nothing's hard. Mm-hmm. It's so damn comfortable. Why would you want to leave? Mm-hmm. And that's where people get stuck. However, the problem is that the mental health is just rising. Mental health issues are rising like crazy over there. So my goal at some point is to change that.
Well, we're taking a step doing that today, my friend.
That's right.
All right. So as we wind down, really appreciate you. This has been fire. So grateful. Have a last few questions, bonus round, just kind of top of mind, short and punchy. Says, what does freedom mean to you?
Oh my gosh, time. Having time and having as much of it as you want, having as much of it as you can, and doing whatever you want with it.
Who is your biggest hero? And the other side of the coin, who's your biggest enemy?
Jim Rohn. I love Jim Rohn. I think he has so much insight. Who is my biggest enemy? Karma. Yeah.
What's your purpose? Why are you on this planet?
To be here to impact as many people to break free from themselves, the negative side of them, and to actually create a purpose that can then go and impact others. So I want to inspire people to also inspire people.
What's your biggest fear?
Oh, that's a tough one. Not living out my purpose to its full potential.
Love that. Last question to bring it home. The title of this podcast, or the name, is the CEO Show, the Chief Executive Officer Show. Snez, to you, what does it mean to be a CEO?
I think it means to lead a team, lead yourself, lead your family, lead everything, lead your business in the direction that you truly want it to go. And lead it through the core values that you have, lead it through the adversity that you face, and make the biggest impact that you can. Because, yes, while you are an executive and you are the chief of all these decisions and all these things, I think at the end of the day, it has to come back to your why. And you became a CEO for a reason, whether it's me, you, anyone else out there. If you're a CEO, you're really trying to make a difference, right? That's why you became one. And you're doing it because you had there's that little kid in you that, had this big, big dream. Sometimes we lose sight of that dream. And if we can just hold on to that dream when shit gets hard, when things get tough, when you want to quit, and you always go back to that, why did you want that dream in the first place? That's what makes you the CEO rather than the employee or the follower.
Mic drop. Snez V in the house. As we wrap today, I want to acknowledge you before I do, in the case our viewers haven't connected with you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram's the best place to find me. I'm Snez V, SNEZV. Also my website, snezv.com. I'm on my gym's page as well, which is Osletics. So super easy to find me. I'm pretty much one of the only ones that have my name, so it's not going to be too hard.
And she speaks the truth.
Yes.
To finish out, I want to thank you for being on this show. Long time coming. We had to adjust a couple times. But more than that, I just want to thank you for how you show up, your energy, your braveness, your boldness, for living the American dream, for setting an example. A lot of respect for you, and I want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. Likewise. I appreciate that.
All right, friends, I know you got a ton from this episode. My asks are like, subscribe, and if you got value, what's your one biggest takeaway from today's episode? Add that in the comments so we can connect on a healthy dialogue. And remember, adversity is your advantage. We'll see you in the next episode.